Before we talk about what Indian media has become today, we need to understand what it was supposed to be. In a democracy, media isn't just another business. It isn't supposed to be a mouthpiece for anyone in power. Media is called the fourth pillar of democracy for a reason. Its job is simple: ask questions, show the truth, stand with people, not with power. If a government makes a mistake, media questions it. If a minister lies, media exposes it. If common people suffer, media amplifies their voice. This is how democracy stays alive. And believe it or not, Indian media once actually did this. During the freedom struggle, newspapers were very dangerous. Not because they spread lies, but because they spread only truth. Journalists were jailed, printing press were sealed, and papers were banned. Why? Because British feared information more than a weapon. After the independence too, Indian media played an important role. It questioned the government, it exposed scams, it forced resignation. It made people in power very uncomfortable. And it was a very good thing. There was a time when journalists were respected, not feared, when anchors spoke calmly, and when debates were actual discussions. You could switch on TV and actually learn something. Media houses like The Hindu, Indian Express, and others built trust slowly over decades. People believed in them because they focused on facts, not in drama. But then something changed. Not suddenly, not in one day, but slowly. News stopped being about information and started about being attention. TRPs become more important than truth. Clicks become more important than credibility. Primetime news become a daily circus. Anchors shouting, guests interrupting, graphics flashing, breaking news every 5 minutes, even when there was nothing breaking about the news. Complex issues were simplified as good versus bad, national versus anti-national, us versus them. Why? Because anger keeps people watching and fear keeps people hooked, and slowly journalism turned into a performance. Around this time, a term entered the public language, so-called Godi media, a term people used to describe to a section of media that appears too close to the government, media that doesn't question the power but defends it, media that celebrate leaders but ignore failures. On these channels, government press release become headlines. Achievements were repeated again and again, one after the other. Mistakes are ignored, justified, or blamed on someone else. If someone criticizes the government, they are not debated, they are attacked. If a journalist asks a tough question to the government, their intentions are questioned instead. And slowly, fear enters the newsroom. Because many media houses today don't just report news, they depend on power to survive. Government's advertisements, corporate funding, political access. When your revenue depends on those in power, how easily can you question them? And this is the real problem. If media does not ask about unemployment, who will? If media doesn't question inflation, who will? A democracy doesn't fail overnight. It fails quietly when institutions stop doing their business. And media is the first institution that weakens. So the question isn't, is the Indian media biased? The real question is, if the media doesn't stand with the people anymore, then who will? And that's exactly what we need to understand next. To understand what has gone wrong with the Indian media, we need to understand one important question, and that is, who owns the Indian media? Because in the end, the person who pays the bills also decides where the limits are. On paper, news channels claim to be independent. We are free. They talk about ethics, freedom, and fearless journalism. But behind the screen, major media houses are owned by very powerful corporate groups. Groups whose business depends heavily on government policies, licenses, and approvals. And this is where the conflict begins. When a media outlet is owned by a corporation with a political and business interest, editorial independence doesn't disappear overnight. It slowly suffocates. A clear example that shook many viewers was the acquisition of NDTV. one of India's most recognizable and trusted independent broadcasters. For years, NDTV was known for asking uncomfortable questions. Across India, most major news channels are owned by corporations with stakes in sectors like real estate, infrastructure, power, telecom, manufacturing, and advertising. These are sectors that survive and grow through government contracts and policies. Now ask yourself honestly, if your parent company needs approval from the government worth thousands of crores, how aggressively can your news channel question that same government? This is how media gets managed, not through censorship orders, but through ownership orders. And slowly, news stops about being accountability and start becoming about the influence. Stories that threaten the power quietly vanishes, and narratives that supported power gets amplified. The audience is not lied to directly, instead, they are only shown the half picture. And half truths are often more dangerous than lies. One of the most dangerous changes in Indian media is not bias alone, it's fake news. Because bias can be debated and opinions can be challenged, but fake news does something far worse. It distorts reality itself. Fake news don't just misinform people, it confuses them, it divides them, and slowly it destroys trust in journalism. Today, many news channels don't wait to verify information. They rush to be the first one, not the correct one. Breaking news flashes on TV, dramatic music playing, and bold claims are made. After hours later, sometimes after days, the story quietly disappears, or it is proven completely false. No proper verification, no accountability, no apology for being wrong. But this is not always accidental. Sometimes, most of the times, it's profitable because sensationalism sells, fear sells, anger sells. Because a calm explanation of a policy failure does not bring TRP, a loud, dramatic headline does. So the language is sharpened, stories are framed to provoke emotion rather than understanding. Because TRPs decide advertising revenue, and advertising revenue decides survival. In this race of rating, truth becomes the first casualty. Many Indians now cross-check news on social media, YouTube, or foreign media outlets. Not because those sources are always better, but because the trust in mainstream Indian media has been damaged. Fake news doesn't just spread lies, it destroys credibility. And when credibility is gone, even truth struggles to survive. Studies and surveys have repeatedly shown that public trust in Indian media has declined sharply, especially in the age of digital misinformation. Truths become relative, facts become optional, and society becomes deeply divided. Because when everyone has their own version of truth, conversations turn into conflicts. This is not a small problem. This is not just a media problem. This is a democracy problem. And if fake news continue to dominate, the biggest casualty will not only be journalism, it will be social accountability, it will be social harmony, and democratic accountability. To understand why Indian news looks the way that it does today, we need to understand only one thing: TRP. Television rating points. TRP were originally meant to measure how many people were watching a channel. In theory, it was supposed to help advertisers understand reach. But over time, TRPs stopped being a measuring tool and becomes an obsession. Because in today's media industry, higher TRP means more advertisements, and higher advertisements means more money, and more money means survival. We have all seen it. Every headline is turned into a breaking news. Every debate feels like a war. And every issue is turned into a fight. Why? TRP. There is no listening, there is no depth, there is no patience, just noise. And the noise isn't accidental, it's profitable. When TRPs decide success, content is designed to shock, not to inform. A calm discussion on unemployment, low TRP. A data-based explanation on inflammation, low TRP. An investigation on corruption or governance failure, risky, slow, and uncertain. But a shouting match on nationalism, high TRP. A sensational debate on religion, high TRP. A dramatic headline with fear and anger, guaranteed attention. So news become entertainment. Instead of explaining why prices are rising, channels create enemies. Instead of analyzing falling job opportunities, they distract the outrage. Instead of questioning those in power, they create spectacles for viewers to consume. This is not journalism. This is a reality TV disguised as news. In a healthy democracy, journalists are supposed to track promises, examine performances, and ask the elected leaders why things didn't work the way they were promised. This is how accountability is created. But today, much of political coverage has moved away from this role. Instead of explaining policies, we see carefully curated events designed for cameras. Politics becomes a performance, not a responsibility. Most headlines are not about issues that directly affect daily life. Unemployment, inflation, rising household expenses, shrinking savings, public spendings rarely receive any analytical coverage. Instead, attention is directed towards surface level politics, heated arguments, polarizing statements, and conflict driven debates. For example, when LPG price rise, viewers rarely hear clear explanations of why it happened or who is responsible. When the currency weakens, there is a little discussion on how it affects the middle class savings and future cost. The information exists, the expertise also exists, but the coverage chooses noise over clarity. Policies go unquestioned, failures go unexplained, and accountability quietly disappears. Not because democracy ended, but because journalism had stopped doing its job. So what does real media actually means? Real media is calm, not loud, fearless, not aggressive, critical, not cynical. Real media asks uncomfortable questions, even when it's risky. It challenges every form of power, political, corporate, and social. Real media is not obsessed with being first, it's committed to be right. It doesn't chase rating, it chases verification. When journalists are protected, when editorial independence is real, and when audience value fact over drama, media become what it was always meant to be, a watchdog. In such system, politicians fear criticism, they fear accountability. They are questioned about outcomes, not slogans. They are asked to explain failures, not just celebrate achievements. And they respond with data, not distractions. This is not unrealistic. It exists in the part of world, and it once existed here too. For that future to return, media democracy must be rebuilt through ethics, through independence, and through courage, and through citizens who demand better. If you believe journalism should serve the public, share this video. If you want media that questions power, support it, because truth is not optional in any democracy. It's essential, because when citizens are not informed, democracy becomes nothing, just a show. This is all about this video. I will be back with another video next week. Till then, take care and keep believing in your dreams.